Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the desk. Mass one in the right. Initialize in the center. Wait a moment. That's no special guest. That's a Nightmare. You just came
I know,
back.
right? It's like I was here earlier, and suddenly my education had been completed. I mean, it's still going on, but my obligations for today were done, so I'm back.
2 hours and he's like, I'm done. Education's finished. I got my degree, everything. Bit of paper right here. I just had to go do the actual graduation part. Sadly, not. It's February 1st. No graduation
Little
quite
while
yet
yet.
for you, Nightmare. But coming into this, you've only cast one game. Our standard thing is we cast 2 games. So this is
Right?
perfect. You can come in for your DFM game. And this is DFM facing off against the Hawks.
It is. The Hawks have had a rough time of it. They got a little bit slaughtered, frankly, in their game versus Sengoku Gaming. Couldn't really find anything. Went for the Renekton Nidalee combo. It didn't work, and then they just lost pretty much across the map.
And this was a clean game from Sengoku Gaming. They looked like they pulled apart every member of the Hawks in that game. However, a team that looked like they were getting pulled apart a little bit was Detonation FocusMe in their previous game versus Crest Gaming Act. It wasn't it Initialize?
Kind of for a touch. I think Nightmare caught a bit of it as well, so I'd love to hear his thoughts in a
Okay.
second or two. But yeah, I mean, Kazu in particular got a little exposed in that last game. He went down a lot, and he was supposed to be kind of a lot of the initiation. DFM played the map quite well, honestly. Their macro game was pretty strong in terms of the wave management, in terms of keeping up in gold, and when things should really have gone very wrong for them, but there was like a couple deaths in mid. They got Nation rolling, and they had to fight their way back with some really clean team fighting, but couple like a gank kill on the top side, a solo kill in mid, and an overstep from Kazu and bot isn't what you want to see from this team that should be one of our stronger laners.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is Arya in this mid lane and Nymera. A disappointing game from Arya in this early game. Solo killed by Naehyung. Like, that's not ideal, especially in the laning phase. This is where Arya has typically, if anything, shined over a lot of... Yeah, Crush is another way of doing it.
Yeah.
Coming against Dasha, this is definitely going to be a harder matchup.
It is, and DFM, not for the first time, and it's only 2 weeks in, did struggle across that laning phase, right? And this is something that, one thing we said to expect from DFM coming into this year was laning power. It hasn't really been that way, not in the way that we assume it to be, right? Ebby and Arya, well, at top of the solo kill charts in LJL across both Spring and Summer. They were just absolutely popping off in those roles. But Arya coming up against Dasha now, who has been one of the better mid laners, even though their team has struggled, might end up doing what Recap did to Arya on the TF in their game versus Rascal Jesters, and maybe just punishing this early lane. But the thing is, though, like the question is, can they hit them hard enough in the early game that they can't fight back like they did just in that last game? They feel very much right now like the LJL G2. If you let them survive the early game, it's lights out. Hit them hard early.
And part of that, of course, is that even when they're dying, they're somehow staying quite even in gold. Like, there's a lot of these guys like, how is Ebby up 20 CS having died? What's going on here? And Arya's like, haven't you just died the once? Why are you still completely even, having had to back twice? And, you know, some of that stuff is like, that's where some of the laning prowess is still there. But you can see, actually, when you've got people, 2 lanes like Ebby and Arya, who both kind of want jungle attention, it can sometimes lead to one of them not getting as much as they would like, especially in a meta where sometimes junglers just need to play for themselves a bit. And Steel certainly had to a little bit in that last one after Cassim was all over the map.
He definitely had to play for... Oh,
yeah,
no,
exactly.
I absolutely...
And
He did.
We both did that twice.
I should have just said jinx, like we were 5-year-olds
I don't
in the
think we've seen
playground.
Jinx in a while.
No, we haven't, thankfully, but she
Getting some
definitely
big changes.
isn't completely out of the table. Exactly, big changes in the incoming. And I just want to take it over to Kazu, because Kazu was a member of the Detonation FocusMe team that was had some glaring problems on this rel. Definitely did make up for it. That 4-man ultimate rel arguably brought Detonation FocusMe back into this game. But there are still questions that we need to have about this support player, and this is definitely the point that Chris Gaming Out also identified of this is the weak part of this team.
I agree. So again, we know what Rel can do across the world. We have seen Core JJ in America, or Huhi in NA, of course, still pulling off some fantastic engages. Kaiser in Europe, seeing the likes of, you know, so many of the additional players pulling out just godlike Rel engages. It feels like the new Leona. You do less damage, but your team fight potential is almost unchecked at this point. Kazu really suffered in the early game, much like the other members of DFM. It really feels it's only really Steel that's managed to keep up in that metric on that team. I guess we talked about the lanes, but as Sam was saying in the break, actually, the problem with Kazu is not his team fighting. The team fighting's been pretty good, not immaculate, but
Yeah,
like
it's fine.
he's not necessarily being that support structure across the early game in terms of roaming and the other aspects of support gameplay, which is a bit more worrying for me.
Yeah.
The question is whether a team with someone like Corporal, of course, and the Hawks can take advantage of that, kill them in lane, and then just be the better roaming support.
Yeah, I mean, Kazu, it's
It-
the little micro decisions for me. It's like I step one step too far forwards, I end up in taunt range for the Idol of Duran from Galio, and then I die after having actually had quite a good trade myself. Or it's oh, hang on, how did you get to roam on me? Why are you in mid lane? Why is Arya now finding himself in a TF gank with 3 people coming at him? Like, those things shouldn't happen at the top level of support play, and it could hurt DFM, but they have shown a fair just strength of just mechanics that have held them through thus far.
Well, this will be our final game of coverage, gentlemen. Detonation FocusMe facing off against the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks Gaming. I think it's about time to go into this pick and ban phase and see how these teams get on. Gentlemen, take it away.
Thank you so much, Lexi. And we will find ourselves into a pick and ban phase here between Detonation FocusMe on the blue side versus the SoftBank Hawks Gaming on the red. And it's still Ebby, Steel, Arya, Utapon, and Kazu. No changes to the roster, no Seros, no gang as yet.
On the other side, of course, the Hawks had a great many changes coming into this split, and it is only their 4th game, and the 4th game will be including Apperman, Tussle, Dasher, Zenit, and Corporal.
Few bans coming out early on. DFM deciding to get rid of the Twisted Fate. Understandable, very strong. Lilia as well, away from Tussle, has really been prioritizing that pick. I like the Talia ban away from DFM. Steel ran over a game in week 1 on the champion and certainly knows what he's doing with it. Udyr as well. Steel had a very good game in the last one and that one too. So I can just sort of see, you know what? Steel's a problem. Take these 2 off. They're very strong in the current meta. We don't want to play either of them.
And of course, we talked a lot about DFM because they are the team to talk about. We have a lot of question marks about this team, but we know that their upper ceiling is very, very high between these individual players. Tussle on the side of Hawks has struggled. We thought that he'd be a bit more of a rock, a bit more of your Hatchemetcha kind of style jungler who's been doing so well inside of Rascal Jester. Making sure that the Hawks get themselves a good jungle matchup and being able to control that early game where the Hawks have also not really managed to land the punches they want to might be pivotal in making sure that DFM don't get to that point where in that last game versus CGA, they can team fight back.
Yeah, and they get rid of the Gnar as well because Ebby kind of got ganked early. It was into this Camille, which should have been the counter, and Ebby still ended up with a serious lane advantage versus Nap, which was kind of worrying. But of course, all these jungle bans have still left open Olaf, and Steel is a notoriously good Olaf, and DFM will happily first pick that champion, and now the Hawks have got to find something in response. Maybe the Aphelios Thresh is their answer.
Aphelios Thresh is a very good combo at playing through the 2v2. We know that Kazu has, of course, died a couple of times in that lane, even though Utapon is one of the stronger laners in the LJL traditionally. The question is, of course, what are you going to do about that jungle matchup? Are you going to go towards something more like the Kindred, something that's better at punishing the Olaf alongside the Aphelios when you have that jungler on your roster, just saying you're going to dive in, you're going to die very quickly from the DPS and kiting ability that we do have. But that maybe doesn't leave your early game ganks quite as potent. You don't really have that same luxury to go towards, what Kasim was doing on CGA and going towards stuff like the Rek'Sai or the Jinzao, because Olaf is really good at clearing so fast and then just having a couple of, 30 seconds to a minute free to do just kind of what they want. We have the Seraphine locked in from the side of DFM. This is a flex pick. We have the Kai'Sa we know that's going bot lane. This is still a very important pick for DFM. Now, the Hawks will have to go into the second ban phase, maybe focusing out not just the one role of mid or support, and maybe taking away something from both.
Yeah, of course, Seraphine is very good in bot. I suppose, you can definitely pair that up for a lot of, poke CC, but again, you're into a Thresh and a Aphelios who could probably blow her up fairly quickly. Could also run it mid, and the point is Encore through an Olaf to extend the range, give him all the time in the world to get charging people, go for those shields and heals. Moonstaff combo, definitely really strong to give him a lot of damage. You could see what C9 like to do with that kind of thing the other night in the lock-in tournament. It's a very potent combo that has definitely started to see a lot of note in pro play. Second phase of ban zone, the Hawks are saying, this could still be Seraphine Flex, so we want to ban a couple champions away from Arya. Maybe you got solo killed once in lane, but those shockwaves in the mid and late game were fairly superlative. So
exactly.
just take it off the table.
So Arya got solo killed as the TF versus the Zoe. Again, a matchup against Vassal Justice where you can get abused. You just normally expect Arya to just outclass their lane opponent, especially in those 1v1s. That hasn't really come to fruition on the side of DFM in the first couple of weeks. But when it has come to the skirmishes, the team fights, and the late game plays, Arya has pulled it out of the bag. Very rarely died out of position. Got picks onto the AD carry. Got big ultimates from the likes of the Orianna. I mean, I'm remembering the game versus V3 where they did manage to pick off the Xayah after with a crafty flank teleport, which is not something you see from those mid laners. If this is going to be the Seraphine going towards the mid lane, it is a bit more of that teamfight prowess again, but the question is, can you get a lane matchup from the side of the Hawks, which can start abusing that? Not having the Victor to scale up alongside the Seraphine does make those teamfight potential a little bit lower from the Hawks, though. Are they going to go towards something a bit more towards that Victor archetype again?
Definitely an option, of course. You know, they've definitely taken away some of those safer laners from the Hawks. The GP, quite weak side. Top laner who can affect the rest of the map. Victor as well. Definitely been a Dasher favorite. He's done some good things on that. Instead, they'll go towards Apamen's Aatrox, which is definitely one of his favored champions and pretty good in the current meta. Gore Drinker, as ever, a fantastic choice on him, though the likes of Divine Sunder or even a Stride Breaker not entirely out of the question. If I'm thinking about Aurel again, there were some good engages, but just some poor positioning moments from Kazu as well. So if he was going to go towards it, we need to see a little bit more. Could still be flexed around, and it is locked in, which means it's Rel mid. Not Rel mid, Seraphine mid. Rel mid would be, something else.
I don't think even a mid lane of the caliber of Arya can make Rel do actual damage. I look at this Aatrox and I think the 4 champions which the Hawks have locked in are really good versus Olaf, because Olaf is short range. The problem is the Hawks have a team which want you to run into them, and Kai'Sa can do that, Rel can do that, but the Seraphine is going to be so hard to deal with if Arya position's right. You're going to get ourselves we're going to get the Akali. I was going to go to a point like, wow, okay, what are DFM going to do about wanting to dive into a team with an Aphelios, a Graves, and Aatrox? Ooh, maybe you don't want to dive into that. They just say, screw that, we're going to dive so hard they won't get to counter punch. We're going to kill them on the initial engage.
And this is the new top lane tech on the likes of Camille and Akali. Who needs Flash? I'm running Ignite. And that just means that, like, yes, they've got this Galio, which potentially is really big news. They've got the Thresh to kind of keep the Aphelios safe, but you've got to try and survive against Olaf, against Akali, against Kai'Sa, all diving at you. And they have a lot of burst individually. I fears for Zenith's well-being in this game.
So do I, but I look at the Hawks and I think, okay, Smokescreen, Aatrox doing all of his disruptive efforts, Lanson and Thrash's kit, Galio having his taunt. If you have that Akali flying in, the Rel flying in, there is a good chance they get one ability off, then they get CC chained to death. This game is going to be really on Steel and Arya as the 2 people who really have the ability to start open a fight, either from range or just ignoring the CC, and then buying the cooldowns, which allow the rest of the team to actually fly off the handle.
Yeah, completely true. And, like, there is definitely a world, right, where Kazu finds more of these engages, they get everything set up, and it all looks beautiful. But Rel is kind of the only tanky-ish member here. The rest of the squad...
Olaf's tanky enough, right?
Olaf, of course, as well, with the Gore Drinker, especially if he can keep hitting people, definitely pretty tanky. But, you know... there is a world, right, where actually they do manage to disengage the Hawks. They do get to have the Aphelios free fire and Graves turn things around, and Aatrox gets into the backline onto some of these squishier members, and things get a bit more difficult. But I'm curious to see how you think this early game in particular is going to play out.
That's a good question, Mark. So you got 2 power farming junglers, which are just kind of going to do their own thing. Graves' first clear, not the fastest in the books, really. So I'm looking at Tulsa, I'm just going to say, well, you're probably not going to clear as fast as the Olaf, so you're not really going to get... You maybe get a counter gank off early enough. So we're not going to see too much jungle intervention in these lanes early into the game. We have Akali versus Aatrox. Akali can absolutely deal with that matchup. It is somewhat of a skill matchup. When you have the Ignite on the Akali, it's a patch 11.1 still. We don't have the Q energy nerfs, which is important. It means that you continue trading in melee matchups is very powerful. Seraphine, obnoxiously strong in lane when you build towards damage on either the carry bot lane or in the mid lane role. Someone like Galio doesn't really get to have a healthy laning phase versus you. So I'm looking towards the bot lane for the 2v2. We have Corporal, Zenit, two very skilled players, versus Kazu, who has been struggling, but they have that rel. Kai'Sa can absolutely start popping off too. I'm looking at these team comps and I'm just saying, well, okay, this is kind of a bit even across the board, but the bot lane is where I'm expecting things to really go off early.
Yeah, I kind of agree. And of course, Dasher on this Galio can turn up where needed, and this is not a support Galio, which is going to be, a little bit lower in levels and stuff. Will come in as a bit more of a bulwark, a bit more of a disruptor alongside that Aatrox, and could definitely affect some of these side lanes a bit more, especially if they overdive to DFM.
But my worry is that Dasher wants to start trying to push out and get prio. You're not going to get priority versus their Seraphine that easily, right? Because the way that you win this lane is by Justice Punch hitting the Seraphine. I think that Seraphine can trade from outside your Justice Punch range pretty often. So I look at this matchup and I just think, so you're going to start getting bullied in lane because of the innate damage on the kit that Seraphine has. You're probably not going to get yourself that much priority, so it's going to really be on the Graves working with the Galio to try and cut down the Seraphine. I'm just not sure how easy that'll be.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And the thing is, Olaf plus shields and heals and speed ups makes him even more terrifying, especially if he's got other people to back him up in the dive. He's not the sole person running at the backline. Of course, he can do that. He's definitely got the power at the minute, but with an Akali, with a Kai'Sa joining in as well, hell, a Rel bringing in a Magnet Storm to gather people together for all those wonderful multi-man undertows, and things get a bit challenging.
It will be very challenging for the side of the Hawks, I think, because I look at this Graves, and yeah, maybe you're on phase rush. Okay, that helps.
Okay,
but Galio's not going to get out of that fight if he goes into it.
No.
I think that Aphelios is going to struggle to run away. Olaf is going to have ample targets to run down the Hawks' backline, because I look at this, it's even just going to be the fleet footwork on the Graves. So coming into these team fights, Olaf has a plethora of targets to run down.
He definitely does, and DFM have gone for this early lane invade. They'll find a ward, and they'll give that over to Arya, I think. Yes, no, it was Utapon, actually, who got that one.
Well, the XP is shared, right?
Ah, okay. But either way, there's a slight gold advantage to Utapon. Game's over. That massive advantage early on, 3 to 1 minute, is untenable.
So when you kill a ward in level 1, if you share the XP out, it doesn't work if you share it out on all 5 members. I'm trying to remember if it's only 3 or 4, because this is actually going to be quite important. It means that a solo lane will hit level 2 at the end of the first wave. So if Arya gets all 6 minions of XP in that first wave, we'll hit level 2. And that's really important, because Galio wants to hit that level 2 very early, get up towards that W shield, and that means that you get that magic shield for the first part of the remainder of the second wave. It means you can tank one of the earlier trades and try and get that lane priority we were talking about. So watch out for this first wave and see if Arya does hit level 2.
All right, we'll keep our eyes on that. Of course, it is the fleet footwork on Tussle on the Graves, which of course is generally standard tech, but it's not phase rush. Anything else particularly of note? I mean, fleet on Ebby, but that's not entirely a surprise either. And everything else,
yeah,
a Predator Galio, I suppose, is one interesting decision. That's not Aftershock.
But even then, that's actually kind of standard nowadays, unless you're going for it in the support role. And I guess the one thing is maybe not the Aftershock, but the Guardian on the Thresh. And speaking of it, that's going to come in handy here.
Flay matched up against the Ferromancy mount up, and Corporal does survive, but takes a big chunk. Exhaust for Ignite, and the Thresh taken very low as Kazu goes forward and forces the flash out of Zenit. Much better trading from the 2v2 for DFM this time out.
The level 1 mounts up and then crash down from this rel is really, really effective, it turns out. Corporal doesn't end up flaying the rel out of that, and they take a really bad trade. And as much as we've been saying Kazu's been struggling lane, actually thinking back about it, Corporal's not been having the most easy time either. And the Hawks now have to give up that priority in the bot lane, which can be very important. As we were saying, both of these junglers, both the power farming archetype, and they're wanting to start fighting over these scuttles.
Ebby in the top side has got a bit of a HP and a shove in this top lane. Graves is shoving towards the bot, so they kind of spotted that out by Arya going in and warding early on. So Ebby feels very content to shove in top side. Olaf will be looking to match Grave going top to bot as well. So we'll be around for this Scuttle Crab spawn that'll be coming out in about 5 seconds. So we'll see where both of these laners are going to be, because obviously actually it looks like Zenit and Corporal have actually got a little bit of the shove advantage here, which might give Graves the opportunity to go to the Scuttle Crab first.
One of the problems of trading onto a support very hard is that they have extra pots and tend to have higher HP pool too because they go towards those support items.
Gank
Steel's now in the bot lane,
Flash,
level 4, going for the
crash
gank.
down. In goes the Kazu. Flash for Corporal, who gets a flay. The heal is there as well. The Undertow misses. Can they get enough damage? Flash forwards. They can't quite get it, and Zenit and Corporal survive. Summoners are blown, but the bot lane of the Hawks just survived. That heal was critical. The Undertow miss. So unfortunate for DFM because that gank looked like sure to succeed, and Tussle gets both crabs as a result as well.
That's so important because they chose to go into Corporal, who was caught out in the first place, but he was the one bot laner with the flash still on the Hawks. Maybe if they could have gone onto Zenit, they would have ended up differently, but then you have the problem of, well, what's going to happen with the Lantern? It's now 3 flashes away from DFM, still not making that first gank land, but it does, of course, mean that a wave is shoved into turret, into the bot lane outer turret for the Hawks, and that means that the CS advantage, for now, going over to Utapon.
Alright, and that's about it. Nice attempt for DFM, good disengage for the Hawks, even if it came in with a little bit of a clenched bum there. Managed to find their way out, as Kazu's gone for a bit of a roam, but will be on vision, and Dasher wisely on the other side of the lane. Gonna try and Justice Punch away, and quite a long range on that ability, so unless you interrupt it, fairly easy to get your way out of trouble. Steel also on vision here. Nice regular ward there in that bush behind the blue buff. Spots him out, and not much to be found there. He's going to feel a little bit sad about getting double scuttled and move over to his wolves.
So, I guess you were saying, well, 2v2 is where the action is going to happen. That is where the action has happened. But of course, another thing we have to touch on is this Ebi-Apperman matchup. This is one of the all-time great top lane matchups in the LJL. Apperman has been playing as Ebi for like 4 or 5 years. This is one, but one chapter in this storied 1v1, and one that actually in 2020 summer, Apperman started getting the better of. Of course, it did end up with a bit of a whimper when it did in the summer playoffs when Sangoku did get unceremoniously chucked out by DFM in that in the semi-final match.
Bit of a shellacking.
But this is one which Ebi really does like to play and has often won the 1v1 in.
Yeah, he definitely has, and is feeling fairly confident right now. The CS is Ebi's favor, but I'm not sure what the wave states are like underneath the little icons on the minimap. Yeah, feels like Ebi has got that advantage. He's got level 6 now as well, looking for the solo kill potentially here. There's the ignite down. Can't quite find the damage he was looking for, unfortunately.
Looking for the auto resets and didn't quite get the passive cycling. Puts up the emote, was looking for the level 6 to level 5. This is something Ebi is so good at. Why were we saying that Ebi was so strong in his solo kill upon? Often his wave state in the very early levels means that he gets an XP advantage and he can take that level 6 to level 5 breakpoint all in. Doesn't work out this time, although he does have that XP limit for now.
Needs to be a bit careful because Apperman's about to hit level 6 himself. Flash again. Of course, Ebi hasn't got Flash himself. Gets pulled back by the Infernal James. Goes down for first blood. He didn't get the level 6 kill, so Apperman does.
Just as we were saying, Ebi, wow, he's really good at this level 6 to level 5 stuff. Flubs his own level 6. Apperman comes back, delivers vengeance with aplomb, and gets first blood for the Hawks.
And that's what you get for running the Ignite over the Flash. It's great for the aggressive engage, but Apperman did manage to get just enough distance that Ebi couldn't get it. He gets the kill, and he'll get out. Of course, Ebi does have the teleport, so he'll lose too much of the wave, but that's good news for Apperman, the top side.
He's actually choosing not to use the teleport. I think that is definitely worth it in this case. You do get a home guard after you die in the first couple of minutes. So it does mean that you do get to lane a little bit quicker. What happens here? So we've got level 6, level 5, and see that Apperman just... Well, this is after the ultimate was initially used, but Ebi, for some reason, flies into the Q3 and just does not respect the extra damage and the flash from Apperman. You don't have that same flash. You don't have the tools to outplay that. Gets hit by everything and dies.
Yeah, he thought he'd be able to dodge out inside the shroud, but Apperman reads it well, lands it, and gets enough damage to just chase him down.
Because the thing about Akali with the with your passive and of course the fleet footwork, you do have a good amount of move speed. You can start chasing down and kiting away. But in that kind of play, Apperman gets the Conqueror stacks really quickly. And just continues to run forward with the extra damage. And when you get all that extra AD, it doesn't even matter if the healing's procced or not. The extra stats in the early game often lead to the plays like that.
Okay, Kazu got hit a little bit there, but just mounts his way back up to safety and feels okay about life. Actually, I think it might have been a crash down. I apologize.
That's the one.
Let's see which way around that was.
The Horse W.
The Horse W, yes. It's Ferromancy mount up and Ferromancy crash down as well. So you've got to get that full title in for the real bonus points to play.
I think you'll find I will call it Rel W and Rel's other W. And then the chat goes Monka W because, yes, that one's probably deserved. Steals up towards the top side. It's 8 minutes in. Herald has spawned. Graves is here too, though. Of course, there is still no flash on Ebby because there never was one to begin with. Does have the ultimate, though. Will Tussle fall into the jaws of Ebby and Steel, though?
He does get hit by the 5-point strike. That's a slow coming out. There is, of course, a fair amount of damage. Apperman missing that Q does give DFM a bit more license to continue trading. Ebby's burned the ultimate now, though, and has to be a bit careful. Good slow comes out, and Apperman's World Ender won't get him in range to chase anything down.
Ebby is just miscalculating his damage. Either it's a communication thing with Steel saying, oh, you know, we definitely can take this fight, and actually they weren't close enough to do so. Of course, he didn't have the Ignite for that play up either. It only just came up now. He wastes his second use of the ultimate, doesn't get anything for it, and now DFM will have to play around this Herald without the Akali perfect execution. And we are looking at a bit of a stalled out Herald where DFM would have loved to take this earlier.
I think by the looks of it, there was a couple retreat pings, if I'm right, that were saying, yo, Dash is in range, you can't go for this. So I think they just had to back out and know that was coming. So actually, that's probably what it is. That's a big Magnet Storm, though. And the Encore is also fabulous. There's very nice damage. The beat drop comes through by Stam, but Kazu very low. Trying to get out. The collateral damage doesn't get the kills. The hook lands, but the shields are still there. The healing from Seraphine is massive, and Ebby gets onto Tussle with the Ignite this time. And that is a good kill. Flash out from the heroic entrance. Arya is around. Apperman does get the Olaf back. That's his jungler dead. Ebby trying to escape best he can, but Hawks are in a bit of a difficult position. The beat drop lands onto Apperman, who's trying to heal his way out, but won't get it. Great shutdown from Ebby with the Shuriken flip to buy space. There is no mana for Corporal, and a double make that 3 overall in the fight for Ebby, and that was much better from the Akali in top.
Give them 2 Duff ultimates to give them some false hope. Ebby has the Ignite, has the follow-up, and the value of Seraphine in these early fights, if they do get extended, is absolutely pronounced right there. Of course, you have a lot of bursty plays coming from the side of the Hawks, but I mean, you can't fault them for feeling like they have the advantage here. There's no Ragnarok. Ebby's under tower top, doesn't have the ultimate either. Apperman is more valuable at this point than Ebby is. We see this fight come into fruition, and Arya is kind of untouched. Dasher can't turn around onto Arya. Corporal's a Thresh, not exactly the most damage, and you don't even have your Aphelios here. The extended fight duration means that the champions of DFM come into their own, and they do take this fight pretty confidently, honestly.
Yeah, and you can see the end of this one as well. Ebby landed that max range Shuriken flip
Look
on
at
the
this,
Tussle, tried to dash away. Great beat drop, and then Ebby dodging out from that Q as well. Just nice moves from the solo laners of DFM.
Exactly. They just use that. They just know that in the extended fight, they end up winning out. They outplay, and the Hawks, they kind of blow their combo with the Galio in an inopportune stance, and the backline of DFM's Zarya just kind of gets to do what he wants.
I think we were also just being highlighted there. I think Zenit just blew Flash in the bot lane. I'll double check that was exactly what it was, but yeah, just your heads up. So off camera there, Zenit might have had a bit of an issue there with Kazu and Utapon going for him. Speaking of people going for people, though, Hawks are stepping forward into this bush, landing onto Kazu, who does step back forward, but Steel's around. They want the fight. The Magnet Storm comes out, the teleport as well. Tussle now in trouble. Utapon trying to spy space, gets the killer instinct away, but is now rooted in place. Kazu about to fall down to dash if he can get enough damage, but the shield from Arya! No way! Not like this! Oh, the extension not quite there, so the call won't land, but a double kill still comes through for Steel. And the DFM win another skirmish. Great teleports, and Hawks just can't find the fight they're looking for.
DFM normally come online at about 15 to 20 minutes in what we have seen from the first couple of weeks. Just not been the case this game. Arya is managing to get that early mid lane priority and turning up the fights earlier than Hawks can really deal with. If DFM sets up this phalanx, the Hawks need to get to the back line and take down the likes of the Kaiser and the Seraphine, but they're going front to back, trying to end the fight before it comes to that, except the solo lanes of DFM are getting there far too quickly to every single fight. And now the Hawks are staring down the barrel of what? It's 3,000 to 4,000 gold lead.
And Hawks think they've caught Kazu here, Nightmare, and it really isn't that way.
No, it's not, because you don't have the Galio in range just yet. You're trying to go into this fight, but the Magnet Storm keeps everyone in place for Utapon to start doing the damage. This is the problem. If you're focusing down the route, sure, it doesn't even matter if Kazu dies here. Let's be honest. And the fact that Arya comes in and saves that kill, yes, that definitely helps. But why is that the target? Because you've gone way too deep here. You know that you're not going to get safe passage back. If Arya turns up, you do have the move speed and the killer instinct from Kaiser to follow on that fight much better than the Hawks can disengage. If they're buying into this fight, you got to damn sure make it that the fight is over before the chase down becomes relevant.
And I've got to call out there as well that that Aria ultimate was inches away from being extended by Steel. It really didn't come through, but I love the idea.
That was a bad enough fight already. Imagine if that had gone
might
worse.
Be in a spot of bother though, but now Apperman getting chased down as well. The encore comes through. Apperman is being forced to want more, and he is cooked raw, not by the Brooklyn boys, but by Steel instead. Ebby in a 1v3 trying to outplay, can't get out. Nice idea. He gets dived by a lot, does a lot of damage, but still gets the shutdown over to Dasher. Well played by the Hawks to at least get something back on the other side of the map.
Both top laners just not really respecting where the enemy team is on the map. You knew that Dasher didn't use that ultimate in the last play. DFM mob should be tracking that cooldown. So Galio comes in. Of course, Graves is on that side of the map too. Ebby kind of outplaying himself more than the enemy's outplaying him in this game. But a kill is a kill, and the Hawks will take those because they definitely need them right now.
Yeah, and like, obviously it was 4 members there, and I was looking at the blinking health bars of Zenit and Corporal. I was thinking, oh no, not like this. But they do at least manage to get a hold of Ebby for long enough, and probably should have given that bot tower up. But I can understand the mindset of saying, yeah, I can outplay this. So, like, it's been done before on Akali, even if it isn't necessarily the wisest choice.
Well, yeah, that's the difference between wisdom and intelligence, right? Intelligence is knowing if a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is not putting that in a fruit salad. And Aria gets himself the blue buff, and you can see the gold. The difference between the particularly mid and bot for the side of DFM is just really becoming an issue. Because once again, we've seen this in a microcosm in many of these fights. The Hawks aren't really getting onto U1. They're not really getting onto Aria, and they're really happy with that turn of events because they're the most vulnerable members on DFM. Hawks are not really closing the distance well enough, and these carries just making sure the fights are valuable for them.
That is 10 tower plates over for DFM, as we were saying. Beat drop lands as well, and Corporal is forced to listen to that very hot mixtape that comes out. Ragnarok comes out. Ebby in a 1v1 with Apperman as well. The Q misses. Now Ebby sticking around with that fleet footwork. Kazu coming around the back end as well, going to try and get onto Apperman, who has no flash. Can't quite get close enough and didn't want to burn the flash to try and get in there. You can see Dasher and Tusk were around as well, even if there was no hero's entrance. So would have been a little bit of a difficult one, I think, to come in and help out.
It just feels like these top players like, oi, there is a game going on like elsewhere on the map, but I would also like to take some part in it, thank you. So they go for these ritual 1v1s, which don't really mean that much. They blow a couple of summoners and a couple of ultimates every so often, but this is not really going to be the tail of the game. For me, it's more important about if someone takes a bad enough trade to burn their teleport, or lose out on their next item breakpoint because they've fallen behind enough of them. The solo kills themselves haven't really led to much so far.
Got a Rift. We've got some items in as well. More to talk about. Rift Maker in for Akali. Gold Drinker for this Olaf. It will be the Moonstone Renewer build for Seraphine, which is no real surprise where things are. But also, she's got a Medjai's in inventory. So, looking to take some names. I'm not sure you want to sign that autograph book, though, guys. If Seraphine offers to give you an autograph, I really not recommend it in this game. Collector already completed for Utapon alongside that Gale Force. On the other side, though, might have to take a step away from those items as Ebby's going in for a fight versus Tussle. Forces a bit of a flash away, but the encore is there. The crash down magnet form is there. And Corporal trying to survive with the stopwatch will fall as well. Ebby gets out with the shuriken flip, and that was a clean dive from DFM. Decent use of the Gravitum ultimate, though. Moonlight Visual does get onto the Kai'Sa, and Utapon falls down, so at least the Hawks get one back.
They do get one back, but the Hawks are under this...
I half wondered where he would take that. He's got Ignite up now. It looked up for half a second there. I'll let you take over again.
Yeah, with the heal available for Zenit, kind of hard to go for that play. Turret's going down, though.
They're still going. Beat drops there. Apperman's getting healing. He's pretty damn strong, but so is the Olaf. Has to flash away. Ebby trying to work his way around. Doesn't have enough space. Has not got Shuriken flip quite yet, but Zenit very, very low. But the onslaught comes through, and the Hawks find a fight to turn around, but they come out with blinking health bars.
Yeah, and this is what I was saying about the Hawks. It kind of feels like they have, like, they're playing as though they have control of the mid lane. That's not really the case. They're meant to be playing a bit wider in the map. They are somewhat brawling themselves to a couple of even fights. Problem there is the collateral damage is that mid lane outer turret. If that fight happens again, and you get this pick onto someone like Tussle and Corporal, trying to wander around this mid lane and a couple of the other areas of the map, you're just going to get caught out by this control tower of the Seraphine, who stayed in lane, has 15 stacks on the Medjai's now, has the Moon Staff combo, is completely online. The Hawks cannot afford to take fights which go badly early.
They land a hook, but the encore gets 4! Not like this, Hawks! They're going to get shot out of the sky! Hawks meet guns, and Ebby's stepping forward for a double. He's looking for a double as well as Aria, and now Ebby looking for this clean ace, lands a shuriken flip, lands the last empowered auto, and DFM say, screw the Drake, we want Baron. They can't even get Baron, it's 8.5 minutes. I wonder where Aria was going, they just throw the thumbs up. They get a clean ace. Speaking of not controlling the mid lane, they don't control the damn river.
Of course they don't. Once again, the Hawks just don't manage to finish off the correct members of DFM. DFM get to fight these fights with their competition in its prime. You didn't even need to use the Magnet Storm or the Killer Instinct. That is an insult to injury.
Oh, just look at this one again, because that was stylish stuff from DFM. Take it away, Nightmare.
So, of course, Ebby has the teleport, goes in for the side, and... well, when you hit like 4-man everything from everyone, it's no wonder that everything goes badly. Sure, you got that Galliol, it's kind of like a party ultimate. In fact, actually, that probably got Dasher killed. That fight is over as soon as that encore lands. Ebby had just... This is the thing, right? Because we know that Ebby has had a couple of misplays. But as long as you're all on the same page going into these fights, DFM have the correct pieces to play out the longer fights. If that had been extended in any way, it would have even still been just as bad for the Hawks. Of course, they all get blown up in one combo, and that's now because there's 25 stacks on Arius and Magi's.
They really do, and yet for all that some of those plays, Ebby's been aggressively looking for plays, right? And some of them have been a little bit, not worked out quite as well. The level 6 to level 5 one, probably the most egregious of them. But he's also made some pretty clean ones, and that one there and the one by the Rift Herald really brought DFM out to a very strong early lead. They are now up, 7,000 gold here at the 20-minute mark.
The only way that the Hawks win this game is by getting really opportunistic picks. You've probably got to focus on getting away those Magi stacks, because having 25 stacks with an item combo, which is super cheap. This is like the cheapest 3-item mage build you can get, and it's one of the most effective. These shields that are going to come through are going to completely nullify most of the incoming burst from the Hawks.
Yeah, and Corporal's now being run down by Steel. No Ragnarok, just throws axes and takes half the health bar of the Thresh. There's the encore. They're looking to get something out of the extension. Can't quite find it. That will be DFM burning a couple ultimates, not really for anything in response, and that's probably the first breath of relief that Hawks have been able to give in a while. They've got a couple items coming through the Rocket Belt, and of course the Shield Bow option for Graves, who is at 0 and 3. Not really the great space for Tussle right now, and they are a little low on options, but at least with those 2 ultimates down, maybe they've got a little bit more space to contest for Vision, at least.
That's probably the biggest win, is that maybe you don't lose quite as many wards you would have done with the threat of that Seraphine ultimate coming through. There is a global, of course, on Apperman. That's probably why DFM aren't going for the Baron side thing. Okay, let's maybe not go for a 4v5 without 2 other important ultimates. That's maybe just a step too far, even though I think that would still actually be a DFM-favored fight. Instead, they're just going to bide their time. They scale better than the Hawks too in this situation. We know that these fights are going to come down to probably the objectives, so we're not going to have so many split plays. And even, well, put it this way, the Hawks would love the map to be split, but they don't get to decide that anymore. They're not pushing up any of these waves beyond the river. They're not getting any vision into the enemy jungle. They can't get, therefore, any of these flank teleports. They don't get to choose these fights.
Aria just destroying the wave with beat drops and high notes, and that's the power of music, my friend. It's a great leveler of waves.
And health bars, apparently.
Apparently, too. Yeah, Aria at 4, 0, and 10 is pretty damn strong. Bot lane for DFM, you know, quite happy. Kazu hasn't died this game, which is seriously quite a boon. A much better game for him on the rail in a lot of ways. Other side of it, you know, Zenit and Corporal. Zenit at least is at 2 items. Maybe if he can stay alive with this Kraken Slayer Hurricane combo, can get something done, but he needs to avoid all the dives coming through, and Hawks are teleporting in here. I'm not quite sure what they're hoping to get out of this, apart from just getting Dash out onto the map as
mid lane priority
quickly as possible.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's just mid lane priority. They need to get a push somewhere in the map. They're trying to do that. They haven't had a pushing lane for, I don't know, a good 4 or 5 minutes at this point. They've not had any control, any ability to ingress into DFM's jungle, and they're really fighting for that. I understand the teleport being used there, but now you don't have that to use on a side lane so much.
The Justice Punch goes backwards into the crash down, and Dasher gets crashed indeed. Will we see the Killer Instinct, though? It's available for Utapon, but he won't follow up on the Void Seeker. but with the mid laner dead after a really unfortunate use of his Justice Punch, he's just going to leave DFM to start up this Baron, and Ebby going to trade with Appman under the turret, just throwing out some Killer Instincts and Shuriken Flips, and not going to find too much more, but will at least buy time and stop Appman teleporting quite as easily as he would like. Not going to have the world.
So the thing about... yeah, no World Ender, and then it also means that Ebby gets to back off, get his teleport off of cooldown, ready to join that fight.
Boy,
This
there's
could
the
be
Killer
the decider.
Instinct, there's the flash, crash down, Corporal is dead, Ave at K-Valley indeed, and now Abby is here as well. He's sped in, and then it's like, no, not like this. He's got the Ignite down as well, he's got a bit of healing, burning. Tussle will not go down, I apologize, but Arya finished up the kill onto Zenit. The bot lane is dead for the Hawks, and now DFM gonna try and get onto Dash as well, who got rooted in place and put down in the ground. Arya's shields just so massive. High note didn't land, but the empowered auto attacks not quite enough either. Tussle back to the fountain. Apperman in base has still not got this World Ender, and DFM say screw the Baron. We'll look for the base instead.
I think they definitely can. That's a lot of important members. If DFM was strong in a 5v5 in an even map state, well, take 2 members off the board for the Hawks, give themselves their death ball composition, they can really go where they please. There's another dragon available. Deny that Mountain Soul point from the Hawks, get themselves a reset, probably go to Baron and end, I'd imagine.
Absolutely, and the thing is that if they leave these guys chance to respawn, they can force Hawks to fight again. So they don't have to worry so much about, just taking the Baron. They can force the fight around the Baron pit and then win from that, possibly.
Well, I don't think it's really win possibly now. I think it's definitely been win probably for quite some time. You're facing down a 10k gold lead now, and often as casters, we have to cast from both sides because there are two teams involved in this, and both of them have a lot of vested interest in this league and these games. When you're 10,000 gold down, though, against a team that scales better than you, that has done 5,000 extra healing for your team on the side of Arya.
Nuts.
Oh my god, that value from that item has been absurd. What do the Hawks do? This is a team where they had to snowball and start going into these very heavy side lane dives into flanking team fights. Well, you're not even going to win those fights if they are on your terms now, and you don't even get to dictate those terms, and you haven't been able to, honestly, for the last 7 minutes.
There's 3 Hawks members in this bush, but I don't think they're going to want this anyway. Kazu thought
They're the
about
tankiest
going in
members.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's an Ardent Sensor inside this Seraphine's inventory as well, alongside the Magi. So that is 4 completed items. Yes, they're cheap ones, but they're offering so much value to the likes of this Olaf at 3, 1, and 10, to Ebby at 7, 3, and 5 with his items. Well, he's not far off a Lich Bane in his inventory. And yeah, Utapon's not been involved in as much, but got himself on the board with a few kills in that last fight. He's at 4 items, and now Corporal getting jumped on. The Magnet Storm comes out, forces the flash from Corporal. In goes Olaf, down goes Thresh. That's a decent Moonlight Vigil with the Infernum ult to its name, but flash for a double kill means Aphelios can't stand and fire. Apperman trying to get something back, but Utapon flashes the other side. Dasher getting run down by Steel and Arya, and now Apperman will get jumped on by Ebby. Utapon secures the kill, and it's an ace at 26 minutes. It's 23 kills to 5, and DFM have crushed this game.
The last 10 minutes have been a formality from Detonation FocusMe. This is the victory lap, and of course it will be, as the first word in that little phrase, a victory towards DFM.
They're going to start moving on to the fountains. There's no one else around. Corporal has respawned, but he's just there to try and maybe survive on the fountain best he can. DFM just toying with their food at this point, but it's all over but for the Nexus explosion. And DFM come away with a very solid victory.
Going course 4-0, perfect record in the first 2 weeks. They got up to that 8-0 mark in spring 2020. So a year later, we'll have to see if they can match or exceed that with, of course, Arya coming in and Kazu into that support role too. Looking strong in this game, though.
They really are. But to break this last game down, we're going to go to a swift break, and we'll be back with an analyst desk in a minute or two. See you then.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Final talk section, analyst section, desk section for week number 2 here over on the LJL. Oh, you gentlemen, and we just watched Detonation FocusMe secure 4-0, the only undefeated team still in the LJL. Obviously, they defeated V3, who we know went on to be 3-1 at this point. So maybe if things went a bit differently, we could have had a bigger streak versus streak battle. But hey, we don't get that narrative. Coming into this game, things were interesting when we just talk about the pick and ban phase alone. We had Seraphine being a flex pick. We saw Kazu reprising his rel, trying to make up for some mistakes from last week. And also Ebby on this Akali. Nymera, this was a damn interesting draft to watch.
It was, because it's 11.1, and honestly, in the LGL, we've never really had a plethora of top lane Akali players. It pretty much just been Ebby at the end of the day. And of course, Dasher, when he was up there, used to play that, but he had to be on Galio duty right now. The big moment during this draft was, of course, the Seraphine picked up, and in Global League, most teams have been very hesitant to pick up something like Seraphine mid. It is abusable in a blind matchup. If you can flex it to mid, that's a different story. But if you're going to end up like picking that Seraphine mid blind, you're going to get a lot of very aggressive picks into something like a Lucian, for instance, just like absolutely tears you apart after a while.
Yeah.
But as it happened, DFN managed to get themselves a crazy strong team fight comp, like absolutely absurd.
Disgusting.
And the Hawks would then you think, oh, but you have to stop them getting to the team fight phase. Well, you don't have any winning lanes either.
Yeah, and that was just how it went. It did look though it could be a hopeful beginning for the Hawks. They were able to find first blood onto Ebby from Apperman, who was able to get that. So, I mean, initialize first objective, first kill went to Sengoku. Well, went to the Hawks. I see SG. I hate that.
I know.
First stuff went over to the Hawks. It seemed great, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was a good start because Ebby obviously got the level 6 first. It kind of had the pressure in lane early on, went for the ignite over the flash. You knew what kind of game he wanted to play, and that meant he was going to run face first or whatever enemy he could find and try and outplay. He goes in, burns the ignite, doesn't get all that much damage down, and then he's still got this level 6 to 5 and goes in for another one of these trades. But he's down the ultimate, he uses the Shuriken flip in, he doesn't have another way out. He goes in and then tries to dodge the Q3 from Aatrox with the Shroud and all the movement speed he gets from Fleet Footwork, and Apperman hits it blind anyway. At which point he gets level 6 off the killing a minion at the same time, and then Ebby is stuck with a world-ending Aatrox at 20% HP, and he goes...
With no flash.
And no energy, and he goes, this could be a problem. At which point he is killed and forced out. And you understand what Ebby's trying to do. He's trying to play aggressive, tries to trade, tries to use the level 6 advantage. Even then, when he's still got that level advantage, he's looking for a little bit of a HP trade. Problem is, Appman kind of outplays it and then really gets the kill off the end of it. And that's kind of good news at that point. And Hawks start looking around this herald and you think, well, maybe Ebby being a little bit down could be a problem here.
Yeah, but that was the end of the good news for the Hawks, sadly, as Nymera didn't Ebby get a triple kill not long after.
So Ebby does that one level 6 all in, which doesn't go well. And then there's a bit when like you see Tussle going top, so I think, oh, Graves is caught. No, that's another ultimate down from Akali. Okay, all right, that's 2 ultimates which have been great, Ebby. And then without ultimate and without Ragnarok on Olaf, there's a Herald fight. And it goes really, really poorly for the Hawks. They commit and they say, okay, we have ourselves the Galio. Aatrox is going to be around 2, even though they don't have well done. We can definitely play around that. And Arya gets there on the Seraphine, and Arya basically isn't focused for the entirety of that fight. Olaf, without the ultimate, does end up dying, but there are just too many unchecked threats for DFM. It's not like you've got like a Malachi San's hotline and a Sejuani jungle where you can just focus down the mid and the AD carry. Every member of this DFM team has the ability to win extended fights, as opposed to the Hawks, which need to really end the team fight very early in the first couple of seconds before that added value from stuff like the Akali just kind of going through all of her Qs and the multiple shields coming from Seraphine come out. Akali has 3 kills without the ultimate being needed. The ignite does come up. And at that point, you've got so much gold onto one of these uncheckable threats that you just end up losing the game from that point.
Like,
yeah,
I'll give the Hawks credit. They had 1 or 2 attempts to turn around DFM because they put their foot to the gas real hard. There was like the mid lane tier 1 where they do end up going 2 for 2 because they try to trade back and they lose the turret, sure, but like they at least were attempting things. The problem is they just lost so much gold so fast on such dangerous carries. They just didn't have a chance.
No, they really didn't, and that first Rift Herald was a huge coining moment for Detonation FocusMe as they really started to put the pedal to the metal, as you've already mentioned, initialize. The Hawks, they definitely were trying at multiple times to find opportunity in. They were able to secure that dragon, but then they sacrificed a turret. They then were able to get a turret, but then they sacrificed another turret. Utapon was getting funneled so much gold throughout the midpoint of this game. And it was weird to say midpoint because this was only about 14 minutes into this game. That's how fast it was. But the next Rift Herald is really, Nightmare, where this game fully goes into DFM's pocket, I feel.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, there were a couple of moments, right? Because like it just got to this point where it didn't matter what DFM's fight, however the fight started, not enough people were caught from DFM. I can't remember a time when like the Galio was really threatening more than 2 people.
No.
That happened again. I'm trying to remember exactly what happened in that fight, but I'm just happening to like, well, it's probably like the rest of the fights. You didn't catch the Seraphine who didn't die that game. Kai'Sa gets to pop off. You've still got Ragnarok and Olaf, and honestly, you're too far behind in gold by that point. You can't afford not to have a perfect engage. Hawks barely got passable ones the entire game.
And let's talk about Initialize, maybe the most defining moment of this game, which I feel like you almost planned a little bit. You've been waiting for a Seraphine to get more than a 3-man ultimate because Aria on this ultimate already had 25 stacks on his Medjais going into this fight. What a performance from him on this Seraphine.
Aatrox sees his moment to get a 3-man queue and instead gets interrupted with an encore that hits all 4 important members of Axis all grouped up. Ebby gets to slide a perfect execution across everybody, and they just devastate it. Olaf runs down a couple, Seraphine gets 2, Ebby gets a triple, chasing Aatrox all the way under his tier 2 around the bot lane. And at that point it's like, oh no. This Akali's at 7 kills. The Seraphine hasn't died, has got 3-4 items and a fully stacked Medjais. It was just at this point, like, they could not find a team fight that won because all the damage they were doing was relatively stunted because they were ways behind. And then there was all these heals and shields, and Olaf, Akali, and Kai'Sa running around the back ends of the fight to kill them all off.
Yeah, and this was at the 18-minute mark. But Nightmare, what happened? They didn't just immediately end the game. Why couldn't they end the game at 18 minutes?
They probably could if they wanted to, honestly. No, they were just... it felt like it was a formality, right? You still had to do it by the book, because there's no point splitting the map. That's the worst thing that DFM could have done. It's like, well, look, we're better grouped up, and eventually just ended up doing that. I think they were basically waiting for stuff like Ebby's teleport to be up compared to Apamen's. So that's why we saw a couple like random 1v1s down in the bot side when Appen was like blowing World Ender and there was perfect execution used too. But it's like, yeah, but Ebby doesn't particularly care because the Aatrox getting into the backline may be a problem for the team fight. Just deny that, and the rest of the team's going to win. It just got to the point where like DFM just like waited until objective timers came back up to go for these 5v5s. Eventually ended off of those. Yeah,
and after a few of them, they were able to find the victory, even though it wasn't particularly hard for them to find, as I think they were just going through the processes, going through the motions. And as Nightmare has said, it was a formality. Detonation FocusMe looking very strong, gentlemen. And the Hawks, sadly, looking a little bit like they've had their wings clipped. I'm a bit concerned about this roster moving forward, honestly.
You think you have to be, yeah.
Look, I need to see better drafts out of them because they have not been playing very well to their opponents.
That's fair.
At all. And they've not been giving themselves a lot of opportunities because I do think there's there's a lot of talent on this roster, but there's a couple bans that have come out against them and you go, at this point, like, oh, what else do you play? And like you saw Zenit on the Aphelios and the Thresh. Looks okay. Like, I don't mind that, but then it's like, the rest of this roster, like, it doesn't make a lot of holistic sense about what this team comp wants to do, and that's been a few problems across a couple of games. Need to see more out of that if they want to contest the top end of this table.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, this will be the end of our broadcast, and that means the end of Week 2's coverage of the LJL. Things are returning back to normal, actually this week, because technically it's Monday here in the UK, so hey, already here. We will be streaming live at Saturday, 9 o'clock as always bringing you the final 4 games of Week 3 live. That's going to be Sengoku Gaming facing off against Burning Core, followed by Burning Core facing off against Detonation FocusMe. Detonation FocusMe then face Axis, and to end us out that day will be Axis facing off against Sengoku. Of course, we have got our podcast that will be coming out on Thursday. And if you've got any questions for us or any thoughts around it, be sure to join our Discord link below the stream. Or if you're watching this via a VOD, you can also find it in the description down below. Initialized Nymera, with the end of week 2, what are your thoughts so far?
High level competition all around, I think. Actually, it's easy to look at this Hawks game and be like, oh, they just got outclassed, and they kind of were, right? But like, there's a reason coming out of week 1, everyone was 1-1. I don't think any team is hopeless. Every team can build on this.
Almost
as
every
early
team
as
was 1-1.
Almost every team was 1-1. Yes, so we had like a 2-0 and 0-2 on either side of that. But like, it does feel like every team has a lot to build on. This is where we need to start seeing the trajectory starting to split apart and start getting the wheat from the chaff.
Yeah, absolutely. Initialized?
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think we have got some very obvious front runners, of course, that V3 and DFM do look good, but not unfallible, or at least not unchallengeable. And some of the people that have challenged them have surprised us. CGA are actually quite good. That's not something I was necessarily expected to say. Rascal Jesters as well look pretty dangerous, as do Axis, and actually it's the likes of Sengoku Gaming, of the Hawks of Burning Core, who've actually got to step up over the next week or so, because otherwise they're in risk of getting put down the table in a place they really don't want to be.
Well, we're going to be finding out how that story unfolds next week. Be sure to join us at 9 o'clock. But from myself, Initialize, and Nymera, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you all very, very soon.